The body was spread across both lanes. It was in one piece, thank God, but there was enough blood streaming every which way that the figure could have been scattered into several different chunks. Ahead was a stretch of concrete, behind the same. To Oliver's side was a forest of countless trees, all appearing as nothing more than tall gray lines in the misty night. Even if he wanted to, which Oliver wouldn't, his car was unable to squeeze around the helpless body without his tires getting blood on them. His only option was to call 911, unless you count driving 12 miles out of the way as an alternative. Oliver put the car in park while he explained to the emergency operator what he had stumbled upon. The heat was turned high and kept him toasty in the running car, but that didn't stop him from shivering. The phone, up to his ear, almost slipped from his sweaty, shaky grasp when he saw movement in the headlights. "He's alive," Oliver yelled into the phone. With a strange mixture of relief and shock, the operator advised him to stay in the car. It wasn't in Oliver's nature to just leave someone out in the cold, helpless and suffering, but he resisted the urge and stayed inside. He rolled down his window and called out to the twitching figure in the spotlight. "I'm on the phone with 911. An ambulance is coming." "Send," moaned the figure in unbearable pain. The bleeding man's words grew louder, regaining a little bit of strength with each mumble. "Police! Send the police!" That statement meant only one thing to Oliver. "Who did this to you?" "Again, sir, roll up your window and lock your doors," the operator instructed. Oliver realized she had been repeating this, but his attention had been focused on comforting the injured man outside. "You're gonna be okay," Oliver said, squeezing the words out of the closing window. "Okay," he told the operator once he was successfully sealed inside his vehicle. "Now what?" Before the operator had a chance to respond, Oliver found himself out of the car, racing towards the injured man. In the distance was someone approaching. The oncoming entity was far enough away for Oliver to confidently retrieve the suffering man. Yet, the person in the distance was close enough for Oliver to make out a man in a brown parka and holding a kitchen knife with red stickiness covering the blade, slowly dripping from its tip. The victim squealed like a whining puppy as Oliver pulled him up off the gritty, wet road. The madman continued to approach with determination, his unbuttoned parka flapping in the wind, as if he was some grinning brown phantom. Oliver aggressively barked at the victim to go faster and to push through the pain. The brown shape was quickly gaining on them. The injured man panted deeply with each small limp. Instead of going around the passenger side of the car, Oliver opened the back door and shoved the injured man in the back seat, saving a bit of time. "Drive," the victim spat as Oliver jumped into the driver's seat. Oliver yanked the car into reverse. The knife-wielding maniac was an inch from the hood now, and Oliver gunned his car backwards into the dark road, illuminated only by the red glow of the brake lights. When he was far enough away from the unprovoked predator, who was now grinning even wider as he gleefully chased after his prey, Oliver did a 180 and sped off into the darkness. He looked back and forth from the road ahead and into his rearview mirror, where the shadow of the knife and its wielder were quickly being swallowed by the darkness. "You doing okay back there?" Oliver asked. "I'm in pain and I'm still bleeding, but thanks to you, I know I'll be fine," replied the man in the back seat. "What's your name?" "Oliver." "Thank you, Oliver. I'm Harry." "Listen, Harry, what the hell happened back there?" "That man waved me down for help, so I pulled over and got out to see what the trouble was. Then out of nowhere, he just attacked me. Suddenly, I'm running from a psychopath, all cut up and bleeding, like I'm in a slasher flick or something." "No good deed goes unpunished," Oliver mumbled, shaking his head as if disappointed in all of mankind. "Come again?" asked Harry. "That phrase. You know, how an offer of kindness backfires on you." "Right. No good deed goes unpunished. I guess I'm walking proof of that, huh?" Even with a light chuckle in his voice, the pain of talking caused Harry to cough. Oliver frowned empathetically as he watched Harry in the mirror.
You just sit tight, Harry. With the speed I'm going, we'll make it to the nearest hospital in 10 minutes.
You know why that is, don't you?
Why no good deed goes unpunished? Good people are easy to take advantage of.
And their aspirations for heroism often put them in vulnerable situations.
Well, I don't know about your intentions for stopping to help that psychopath, but I wouldn't say that I had any aspirations of heroism when I stopped to help you. It just happened. Before I knew it, I was outside of my car running to rescue you. It was just in me, I guess. Case in point, I had dialed 911 before even thinking about exiting my vehicle. Speaking of 911, Oliver looked around for his phone. From the back seat, Harry's bloody hand reached out, clutching Oliver's phone. The screen was covered with streaks of rust-colored fingerprints. Not wanting to touch some stranger's blood, Oliver asked, "Can you put it on speaker?"
"But there's nobody on the line," replied Harry.
"She hung up on me. I cannot believe an emergency operator would hang up on someone who's clearly in a crisis."
"Let's call back. The fact that nowadays we can phone 911 anytime from almost anywhere is amazing. People are so much safer."
"Despite what just happened," Oliver added, "you're right for the most part. It certainly puts serial killers out of business, right?"
"Well," Harry shrugged, hesitating to disagree. "Madmen like the one you just ran from? If they're thirsty enough for the kill, they'll always find a way. Even if they have to resort to teaming up with another lunatic and sharing the winnings. Two psychopathic minds are better than one, right? Take the Grimm brothers, for example."
"The Brothers Grimm? Those fairy tale guys?"
"No, a duo of modern-day killers. They lure their victims, targets as they call them, by faking an emergency."
Oliver realized Harry was now sitting up straight and talking without any whimpers in between his words.
"The targets stumble upon one of the killers, who pretends to be injured, at which point their prey dials 911, remaining safely in their vehicle. The target doesn't want to be a coward and doesn't want to spend the rest of their life wondering whether or not they could have done more to help. So, when the second killer appears out of the darkness, the target foolishly gets out and pulls the first killer into the car with them. They drive off. The killer who did all the acting, all the shrieking and the gasping, they get to be the one who makes the kill. The Grimm brothers take turns playing the injured one. It's the more difficult role to play, but whoever does all the fake cries and moans gets rewarded with doing the fun part at the end of this little ploy."
Oliver's phone started to ring.
While he'd never get the chance to answer it, he knew it was the emergency operator calling him back after Harry had deliberately disconnected the call. Oliver also knew that had he stayed on the line with the operator, she would have told him about the Grimm brothers, who were known to be out in that area. And just like the other targets of the Grimm brothers, police would find Oliver in a parked car with an open neck. Like all the other targets, Oliver would consider crashing the car, taking the killer out with him. But when death is sitting right behind you, close enough that you can feel the spittle on the back of your neck with each taunting word, the targets always open up to negotiating for their life. Harry would instruct Oliver to pull over to discuss options for sparing him. Oliver offered money that Harry only pretended to be intrigued by, until the car was safely pulled over, money that Harry never bothered taking. The items these targets tried to trade with Harry so that he'd spare them their lives would always end up being irrelevant. Harry was there for one thing: the kill. The Grimm brothers might eventually stumble upon the wrong target, someone who wouldn't negotiate or plea. People with that kind of fearlessness are out there, but they're rarer than many realize. And if their target thinks there's a chance to talk their way out of death, even the bravest of the brave could be duped into thinking they might survive the Grimm brothers. Maybe one day there would be a survivor. Maybe the law would catch up to the Grimm brothers. Maybe good deeds will go unpunished. Maybe